All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's episode, we're looking at 6 breakout winners for the upcoming NHL season. You know, we want to find the guys like Clayton Keller, Matt Boldy, even Martin Necas, these guys who are going to go from 30 points, not a lot of ice time, to getting a lot more ice time in production this season and getting up to those, 70, 80 point marks that really helped your fantasy teams last year. So before we get in the video, be sure to subscribe. Check out all the other fantasy hockey videos that are coming out right now. We'll be doing some more fantasy hockey content and other content in general. So let's get in the video. All right, so the first breakout winger we're going to be looking at, a guy had a mini breakout last season, but it's Owen Tippett on the Philadelphia Flyers. He got acquired in that Claude Giroux trade, bringing over from Florida over to Philly when Florida was making that playoff push about 2 years ago. But last year, he really showed his true colors, going for just under that 50-point mark, but was clearly one of the better players on this team. We saw him play a majority of the season with Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. I think that'll probably be the same going into this season. Not a big coaching change either. It'll still be John Tortorella behind the bench there. But I think the biggest thing for Owen Tippett this year is his time on the power play. It looks like at this point they will be getting Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson back, who both, Sean Couturier didn't play at all last season. Cam Atkinson really played, I think, the first half of the season, got hurt at the end of December. So those two guys, a veteran presence, will really help, at least on the power play. And who knows, if the lines get shifted a little bit too, having Sean Couturier as your centerman will prove to be very good if you own Owen Tippett in fantasy hockey. Looking at Owen Tippett's numbers last year, he had 27 goals. He also was the quarterback on the first power play last season alongside Tony DeAngelo. He's gone, so now Owen Tippett really has the full reins to shoot from the point because the guy has an absolute rocket of a shot. He also led the team in expected goals for in 5-on-5 play last year. So I really don't see this guy regressing at all. I think we'll see from 50 points go up to that 80-point mark this year in Philly, even more, a little bit more comfortability within this lineup too. Clayton Keller finished as the 11th best right winger last season. Owen Tippett can definitely be in that range this season. I see Clayton Keller kind of regressing, but to think that Owen Tippett can't do that with the reinforcements that are coming in for Philly this year in terms of a veteran presence would be silly to say. So Owen Tippett, I'm going to say, will be a top 10 right winger when it comes to the end of the fantasy hockey season. All right, so the next guy we're going to be looking at is JJ Peterka on the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I've talked about this kid already in some of my other videos, but 76 games played last season, 12 goals and 20 assists, but he only averaged about 13 minutes per game on the ice, which is really low. That's like the same amount of Jordan Greenway was playing last year. Bruiser now at this point at his age, and the style of play he plays completely different than JJ Peterka. I think he'll play alongside Dylan Cousins again, who really broke out last season, and he'll just help JJ Peterka have his breakout season this year. As I mentioned, posted just 32 points in 77 games, but look for his role in 5-on-5 to definitely increase, as well as the power play. Really excited to see what this kid can do with up to 17 minutes per game on the ice. They're really focused on getting this young core even more time this year. We saw what happened with Tage Thompson last year and Dylan Cousins. This Buffalo Sabres organization is really keen on getting these young studs a lot more productivity and a lot more ice time. So I think if JJ Peterka is put in that same kind of realm this season, we'll see his breakout season, and maybe it won't be 70 points, but you can expect at least 50 points from this kid when he's playing 16 to 17 minutes per game. All right, the next winger that I expect to break out this year is on the Nashville Predators, and I think overall this team will have a lot of young players that will get the opportunity to break out, but I think this guy is one of the clear front runners on this team to do so, and that's Evangelista. Looking at his season last year, 23 games played, he had 6 goals, 8 assists, about 16 minutes per game on the ice when he was playing with this team. He was in the AHL with Milwaukee. We had a great season there, very productive season, only 9 goals, but a high assist total as well. You look back at his numbers with London in the OHL, they were insane. I think he played about 60 games in his last junior year. He had 111 points, 55 goals, so almost a goal per game. Now, is that 1-for-1 goal going to translate in the NHL? Obviously not, but you definitely see those guys who are putting up 100 plus points really do well in the NHL, and we've already seen him do very solid in the limited time that he's had in the NHL at this point. And then he'll be on a great line with Denis Gurianov, absolute sniper, and then Thomas Novak, who will probably be on my breakout centers list as well this year. I really like what this Nashville team is doing, especially bringing on Barry Trotz as well. This organization is definitely headed in the right direction after losing a lot of their older players last season. He also had an 11% shooting percentage last year, something that's definitely not unrealistic for a guy to keep at that pace, a guy of his skill level. And then last year as well, 14 points in 23 games played. You put that over an 82 game season, that's about 50 points. So I can definitely expect Evangelista to have about 50 points this season. Now, is he going to go high in your fantasy hockey drafts? Obviously not. That's why he's a breakout candidate. So try to take him much later in your draft, someone that you're kind of sneaking up on in the later rounds. All right, so the next player we're going to be looking at, Tanner Jeannot on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Just the pure capital that they spent on getting this guy. I think they gave about 5 picks or 4 picks for that playoff push last year, along with Cal Foote, who's a pretty solid prospect as well. You'd think that this guy is going to get a little bit more of their attention. He went to arbitration this year, came out with about a $2 million per year deal for only 2 years though. So he definitely has a lot to prove with this Tampa team, and I think he will. Looking at that right side, that right winger position for the Tampa Bay Lightning at this point. You know, obviously you have that top line that's absolutely stacked, but then on the second line right now, they have Connor Sheary, a guy I think can that Tanner Jeannot can definitely jump in the lineup. I could see him being in the top 6 at this point. And look, the first season that Tanner Jeannot was on Nashville for the first kind of full season, he had a great year, 19% shooting percentage, racked up the goals, and then last year a little bit more disappointing. 76 games played, only 6 goals and 12 assists. The one thing that's very valuable if you're in a bangers league, he had 290 hits last year. That is an absurd amount of hits. He's definitely an enforcer, but a guy that can also score a lot of goals, a guy that kind of plays that Michael Bunting style of offense, scores a lot of goals in front of the net. So I think with all the different situations that he'll be able to play in, he'll jump from about 14 minutes of ice time to about 16 or 17. He'll score more goals, get more assists, get more points. Who knows, maybe even have more hits, but I think you could definitely expect him to be a valuable piece of that second power play as well. So Tanner Jeannot is a guy you could definitely take a shot on later on in your fantasy hockey drafts as well. All right, Jakob Pelletier is next on this list on the Calgary Flames. I've also talked about this kid before. He was actually in our waiver wire pickups last year and definitely a streamer that you could have used when he was up from the AHL for this team. I have a lot of respect for this guy. He's been fantastic throughout the course of his career in terms of in the QMJHL. Looking back at that in his junior season, scoring 80 plus points in 2 of his junior seasons, and then last season scoring 43 points in 28 games as well. So I think he's proven that he can do it in the AHL level. He's proven that he's even been able to do it up in the AHL, NHL as well. For the limited ice time that he was playing when he did get called up, played 24 games in the NHL last year for the Flames. He had 3 goals, 4 assists, 3 power play points. His shooting percentage about 6%. The biggest thing too, and I mentioned this with a lot of Calgary Flames players at this point, Daryl Sutter being out, Ryan Huska being in is such a huge thing for some of these younger players as well. I talked about Jonathan Huberdeau in a bounce back candidate position this year. One of the biggest things we saw, Anze Kopitar back in the day when his first season or his last season with Daryl Sutter, he had 52 points. His first season after Daryl Sutter left, he had 92 points. I think you could see the same thing with Jonathan Huberdeau, and then just the Flames in general, as they're not really on a lot of people's radars to maybe win a Stanley Cup or really be a total playoff contender at this point. You'll see a lot of these young guys really get opportunities here. So I think Jakob Pelletier will be a perfect candidate for that. He's currently quite far down on the lineup, but I think he'll be with a big club all season long. In his 24 games with the Flames last season, he was 6th in expected goals for per 60, higher than Elias Lindholm, Huberdeau, and Dylan Dubé, all guys who had decent years last year. Obviously, Huberdeau didn't have a great year, but 3 guys who definitely had way more time on the ice and production levels than Jakob Pelletier last season as well. I wouldn't say he's on a ton of people's radars in terms of fantasy hockey, but if you look at a lot of people who are working inside the Calgary Flames organization, they're very excited about this kid and what he'll be able to do this season. So Jakob Pelletier should definitely be on your radars way later in fantasy hockey drafts. And if you're in not as deep leagues, a guy that you could probably pick up and act as a streamer throughout the season. All right, so the last breakout player, a guy that will probably be going a little bit higher in drafts this season just because of how high of a prospect he's been throughout his NHL career, and that's Kent Johnson, a former Michigan Wolverine. He's on the Columbus Blue Jackets, playing on that left wing. Last year, finished with 40 points. He had 16 goals and also contributed a lot on the power play as well, 12 power play points, but only about 14 minutes on the ice per game. And now we're looking at a line that is going to include Adam Fantilli, obviously the 3rd overall pick this season, and Kirill Marchenko, who had a fantastic year last year, scored a ton of goals on not a lot of ice time as well. So I think this line as a whole, obviously you have the Johnny Gaudreau, Patrick Laine, Boone Jenner first line, but I think if Johnny Gaudreau doesn't lead this team in points, there's actually a good chance Kent Johnson can. And if Kent Johnson can go from 40 points to about 70 points, that's a huge step up and would act as his breakout season. You know, bringing a new coach in Mike Babcock, I think might help this situation as well for this Columbus Blue Jackets team as a whole. And then he also was he had the 6th most high danger chances for on the team last season. So I think this team that will need to score a lot of goals because of the poor goaltending and lack of defensive structure. I'll get to that in a second. But I think the addition of some of these off-season defensemen that they got, so Damon Severson, Ivan Provorov, I mean, your bottom D pair now on the team that really struggled defensively last year, Eric Branson and Adam Boakfist, that's pretty solid. So I think that will definitely help this team, you know, having more of a defensive structure, being able to break out the puck easier, and just spending more time in the offensive zone will, one, help the goalies of Daniil Tarasov and Elvis Merlinkins, but also really help this young second line really just produce a lot higher quality offense in the offensive zone. So Kent Johnson, a guy you definitely have to keep your eye on, a guy I think can easily go from 40 points to about 70 points this season. Super skilled, had a lot of success at Michigan, and now you bring in another former Michigan Wolverine, although they didn't play together. The chemistry will probably be there relatively early, and I'm hearing a lot of really good things out of this line in camp. So definitely target Kent Johnson in your drafts coming up. All right, that's it for the breakout wingers heading into this fantasy hockey season. Let me know what you think of these top 6 guys and who you're targeting, whether it be on the left wing or right wing. Be sure to check out the other videos that I already posted on the OwnersBox Fantasy YouTube channel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.